All Dogs Go to Heaven 2. Nowadays, All Dogs Go to Heaven is known as one of Don Bluth's most recognizable franchises, where the first was made back during his prime in animation alongside An American Tail and Land Before Time. However, when looking into the context of the first movie's history, the fact that it got not just a sequel, but a theatrically released sequel is kind of a miracle in itself, even if Bluth did not return to direct. You see, the initial release of the original was just an outright disaster. Because it literally came out at the same time as Disney's The Little Mermaid, it got blasted by critics and even resulted in a box office flop. So what made Charlie's luck turn around? Well, that is actually thanks to the power of home media. Several months after the movie's release, not only did the film found its popularity amongst the crowd, but it also became one of the best-selling VHSs of all time. And that is how All Dogs turned into a prominent franchise with its own TV show, its own version of A Christmas Carol, and of course, a sequel that MGM thought it was good enough for the big screen. So now that we're going back to heaven to catch up with all the dogs, will this movie truly prove that you can't keep a good dog down? Or would it be more suiting that this film goes to hell? Let's find out. The story. Charlie is at it again in the sequel, tricking the angel dogs to leave heaven and get back to Earth, going on an adventure with his buddy Itchy, teaming up with a kid with no parents to get what he wants, and learning why it's more important to put the needs of others before your own. Sounds a bit familiar, right? Yes, this is one of those sequels where the story tries to copy a lot from the original as a lazy attempt to feel like the original.
I'm gonna like it here, Charlie.
Believe me, it gets old fast.
Yeah, sure. Ha ha ha.
However, like the others that do the same, it doesn't understand what it is about the first that made the story engaging and have its viewers enjoy their time with Charlie and Itchy. So, on top of the recycled elements, the rest is filled with overused plot points from the protagonist falling in love to the villain planning to rule the world that results in such a boringly generic kids film that has some hints of All Dogs Go to Heaven. And yet, despite trying to be a lot like the first All Dogs, there's contextually very little connections here to its predecessor. Sure, it starts out where it left off last time with Charlie and Carface in heaven, and Itchy is established as Charlie's sidekick, but those are the only things that are the same as before. It doesn't acknowledge any of the previous events, and many of the characters from before, like Killer or Anne-Marie, not only haven't returned, but haven't even been referenced at all. Not to mention that it also changed a lot of the rules regarding how things work in heaven and hell that only fuels the inconsistencies. It's almost like the script can be slightly fixed up just by switching some of the names, or they don't even have to be dogs, and this can become its own original movie with no ties to All Dogs. That way, it would have helped to strengthen its own concepts and ideas because, admittedly, they do sound intriguing to make the world building more immersive. But since it attached itself to an already existing property, it makes the film look like it doesn't care about consistency and just wants to do whatever it wants to make it convenient for its dull plotline. The story does make it feel like the viewer is watching All Dogs Go to Heaven, if All Dogs was completely watered down and poorly handled. The animation. You'd think that as a sequel that got the chance to be released on the big screen, it would mean that there must have been at least some quality in the animation that's close to the standards of the original that would justify that kind of release. But oh no, this is a serious downgrade. I understand that it's quite a difficult task to have your animation quality get to the same level as Don Bluth, but this just stripped down all of Don Bluth's signature visual beauty and resulted in a look that seems a lot cheaper that feels more soullessly manufactured than passionately crafted. Granted, I wouldn't necessarily call all of it garbage. There are still a few elements that were well done, especially the backgrounds. They don't hide the fact that they're just paintings, and it's like they're displaying their brushstrokes proudly in them. It presents a distinct style that does give the movie a bit of a unique look, on top of being a big help to play around with colors to set the mood of each scene. But then there are the people and the dogs that inhabit these painterly depictions of heaven and San Francisco, and this is where the downgrade feels the most painful. Remember in the first film where it features Don Bluth's master draftsmanship that delivers a lot of amazing looking people and characters that have great detail and finesse? Well, that certainly didn't return in the sequel, replacing realistic details with a more cartoony and simple look, with only some of the dogs retaining just a bit of that Don Bluth style just for the sake of familiarity. On their own, the designs would be fine for an animated TV show or something, but as a sequel to a Don Bluth film, especially one released in theaters, it feels embarrassing to see all dogs fall down to something this low for its follow-up. As for the character animation, it can have some mixed results. At best, it can be like a decent direct-to-video feature. But at worst, it can have the same standards as a TV series. But either way, it doesn't make the movie look appealing, especially when it's not good enough to craft the chase scenes where the combination of mediocre at best animation and the unfunny slapstick comedy results in those moments to be badly executed chaos.
Jump, man!
Also, this is just a minor nitpick, but I just want to ask, can the dogs not kiss in the same way that people do? Considering that they're meant to be normal dogs and not like anthropomorphic animals, it just looks uncomfortably weird, like it's just... ugh. Maybe some may find that I was a bit harsh on the animation, but again, as a theatrically released sequel to a Don Bluth film, this downgrade is not okay. The characters. If there's one positive thing that I took out of this movie, is that it made me more appreciative of Don Bluth and Gary Goldman as directors, especially when it comes to handling characters like the ones from All Dogs Go to Heaven. Sure, they're not amazing characters, but their directing helped give them some charm and likability, even if they seem despicable at first. The reason why I say this is because now that the sequel doesn't have them involved anymore, all the charm is thrown out the window, and what's left is a cast of tediously generic characters who make things worse for the feature. This is especially the case for the returning leads Charlie B. Barkin and Itchy. Now without the original director's care, Charlie is the typical egomaniac protagonist that always tries to con his way into getting what he wants, but then later grows a heart to help the new people he was hanging out with. As for Itchy, his role is to be the buddy who is also the moral compass to keep reminding both Charlie and the audience that the reason they're back on Earth is because they gotta retrieve Gabriel's horn, which is used to open the pearly gates. What's interesting to note about Charlie is that his selfishness not only can get himself in trouble, but also causes more problems for the feature, where he ends up constantly juggling his missions of finding the horn, help the kid by acting as his guardian angel, and get the girl. It's always a constant shift where the movie always feels like it doesn't know what to focus on.
Look, we got the horn, don't we? Come on, let's get out of here.
I still need to take care of David. I am his guardian angel.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Also, with the exception of Dom DeLuise, all the original actors have been replaced, and it can be noticeable. Especially with Charlie, where Burt Reynolds got replaced with Charlie Sheen being Charlie Sheen. As for the others, well, if the leads are bland, then so are the new ones, like Sasha is Charlie's love interest, Annabelle, another recurring character, is the lead of Heaven, and David is the kid who ran away from home that needs Charlie's help. The only characters that do anything to actually help out the feature are the villains, Red and Carface. While they are forgettably bland villains, the one upside they do have is that it does sound like their voices, George Hearn and Ernest Borgnine respectively, were having a lot of fun in their roles, so at least their performances can bring out some enjoyability in this. But other than that, all the charm that made the characters memorable is gone, and now the movie is left with an unpleasantly generic cast. The songs. Have you ever heard of a musical that didn't want to be a musical? Well, that's the impression I got when listening to the songs of this movie. Considering how this picture's main goal is to capitalize on the success of the first film, the songs feel like they exist not to enhance the story, but out of necessity because the first was a musical and it was the popular thing to do at the time. As a result, the feature includes a soundtrack with a Broadway-style tone that has the bare minimum of the kinds of songs you'd commonly find in a musical, and each one feels like an unironic stereotype of their respective song. There's It's Too Heavenly here, the Something More song at the start, sung by the protagonist who wants to get out of his current environment for something new, where the only difference from the others is that it's heaven-themed.
Oh, hallelujahs and hosannas, it could drive anyone bananas.
Then there's Count Me Out, that is the sexy femme fatale song sung at the bar where the guys go crazy over her.
Here's a little change, go call somebody who doesn't look like me.
Then there's It Feels So Good to Be Bad, that's just the bland villain song.
You'll discover wicked ways you've never known before. And you'll find that when you're really rotten to the core.
After that, it's the Happy Buddy song where Charlie and David sing On Easy Street.
Easy Street, where the sun's always shining, not a cloud in the sky.
And finally, it's the love ballad called I Will Always Be With You that ignites the love of Charlie and Sasha.
I will always be with you, like a guardian angel, constant and true.
It's hard to really describe more about these songs because they're just so bland, so forgettable in the way that their existence is only to make this a little more like the first All Dogs. It has no intentions of helping out the movie or bring out a memorable moment, especially when the animation can often be at its worst. It's just to fill in time and crafted with the same enthusiasm as a high school student that just wants to get out of there and hope to walk out with a passing grade. This movie did not want to be a musical, but it had to and wrote the songs just for the sake of getting over with them.
Sasha, I can't find Itchy. Where's Charlie?
All Dogs May Go to Heaven, but this felt like hell to watch. All Dogs Go to Heaven 2 is one of the worst sequels to a Don Bluth movie, and the fact that this got a theatrical release really adds insult to injury. With a lazily written and unengaging story, mediocre at best animation, characters with no charm or originality, and some of the most bland songs made for a musical, it makes me wonder if this was originally planned as just a direct-to-video release, but put onto the big screen by MGM at the last minute, because the quality certainly does feel that way. Sure, there are a few good elements in this, like the backgrounds and some of the voice acting, but those are only minor notes compared to the list of problems that this movie has to carry. My recommendation is simply just to stick with the first movie. It's not Don Bluth's best, but it's certainly one of his more enjoyable ones. Or, at the very least, much more enjoyable than the sequel. As a movie that is anything but blessed by the heavens, this is a film that merits the AniMat's seal of garbage. When a dog goes to heaven, it's for the best that they stay up there. Hey guys, this is AniMat, and if there is one question I would like to ask about All Dogs Go to Heaven 2, it's just, how is it that this movie in particular managed to get a theatrical release? Now, I know, yes, I do sound like a broken record about this, and I do apologize for that, but it's just when I was watching this movie, it's the one fact that always perplexes me, especially when seeing the quality, and it looks like it was always meant for direct-to-video, but then suddenly someone at MGM decided, let's go and release it on the big screen. Why? I don't know. And especially when looking at all the sequels of Don Bluth films, that this is the one that got a theatrical release. Now, I understand An American Tail 5 Goes West. That one makes a lot of sense. But with the quality displayed here, like, why this one? Especially when you do compare to some of the others that could actually be a lot better, including the one that Don Bluth did actually work on with the, what was it, Bartok the Magnificent? Yeah, that's the one. And somehow this one managed to get a theatrical release. Like, maybe it could actually be the case that it is a bit of a last-minute decision, that it was always meant for direct-to-video, and that someone at MGM decided, let's go and put it out as a movie, because this is not an uncommon story, believe it or not. Like, back in the days of direct-to-video movies, when they were, like, really popular at the time, it does happen a few times when there would be some that they were always meant for it, but then someone decided, let's go and put it up on the big screen. It definitely has a better chance. It has happened a few times, especially with Disney, and one of the best examples of this is actually Toy Story 2, where that was meant for direct-to-video, but then someone at Disney decided, actually, it'll be good enough for the big screen, and then, well, I guess you could say the rest is history. But with All Dogs Go to Heaven 2, like, is it really just because the first movie was really popular on home media, so they decided, hey, maybe it'll be popular enough for the big screen? Like, did MGM not notice the quality of the movie itself and just focus on the success of the first film's VHS release and just use that as their basis of, alright, let's just go and release the sequel to the big screen and hopefully it'll make money? I really don't get this. It's just, I don't know, I feel like the quality doesn't justify the reason of having, like, such a major honor of having it be released on the big screen. It's just something that doesn't necessarily make sense to me. But with that said, I would like to go and pretty much bury the hatchet with All Dogs 2. Like, now I am done with that thing. I can finally move on. And now let us now go and move on to our Patreon requests. Yes, the next one shall indeed be a Patreon request, and this one will be from Red Bandit. So, I would like to go and start this off by saying that if you guys would like to be like Red Bandit and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards at the same time, including seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you guys would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. So with all that said, what is it that Red Bandit went and actually asked me? Well, what's interesting to note about this one is that finally I get to go and review a Jim Carrey movie. And often with Jim Carrey, he can be a blast whenever he's in a movie. Rather it be like some of his classics like Ace Ventura or The Mask, or maybe something that's like right in the middle like during the 2000s like Bruce Almighty, or maybe some of his most recent flicks, especially with Sonic the Hedgehog. But in this case here, this is actually one of the rare instances where he literally got animated. And I would just like to say that, as we are animation fans, I think we all know that the Grinch was not the only Dr. Seuss character that he got to play.
What do you know? And I thought all dogs go to heaven.